Passion. Where do we get it from? Where does it come from? How do we find it? What do you do on the days that you wake up and you're just kind of like lagging? You feel like you're dragging your feet. Maybe you didn't get enough sleep the night before. And you're just not feeling it. You just rather just kind of shut the door, turn off the computer, go back home, back into your house, sit on the couch, watch TV all day. Trust me, I have those days plenty often. What usually happens for me though is once I start getting my day going, it's all in the thought process. I start thinking about the people in my life. I honestly get most of my passion from the people that I have in my life. I am surrounded by people who I love, online and offline. I'd say that's where most of my passion comes from these days. One of the paths of life that I've walked down and continue to walk down, in that path I've learned some very important things specifically about personal growth. And I am pretty open about it, I share about it. And so that path of life I'm talking about, so you don't feel like I'm being vague and ambiguous, is my sobriety. I have been clean and sober since 1999. That actually has a lot to do with it for me, right there and then, because I turned my life around. And all I really have to do for me any day is look at my life today compared to what it was then, and then I can't help but be filled with gratitude for the life I have today, because I shouldn't be here. I should not be sitting here in front of this camera that I spent what I spent on it, doing this video. I should not be somebody who has the time or even the capacity to do what I'm doing right this very moment, based on my experience when I look back. So really, what's that ingredient there? What am I tapping into? What's that power within myself that I'm tapping into? It's the gratitude. It's the real, true, genuine appreciation for the life I have today that gives me the passion to want to keep going. And the fact that I sat down years ago, miserable working at a CPA firm that I worked at, because I just wasn't happy with where I was at in life. I wasn't happy with what I was doing. I was only 3 years clean around then. And I didn't have the life that I really wanted. I didn't want what I have. Today I want what I have. But what I started doing back then, and there's a blog post, if you go to my blog, nerdenterprises.com/blog, it's a long title. It says, I think it's something like how starting Nerd Enterprises got me out of a deep depression. It's a true story. It literally got me out of a deep depression. And what happened was I started thinking in terms of, okay, well, as long as I'm miserable, first of all, somebody gave me some really good advice, which he said, go home and do some things that you really enjoy doing with your time. Make sure you're spending some time every day doing something you love. And I don't know if he understood that this is what would happen. I certainly didn't know that this is what would result from it. I just knew enough by then that because of how clueless I was about life at that stage of the game, I had certain people in my life, this gentleman included, who, if they told me to do something, if they suggested that I do something, I took it as a commandment and I just did it. I didn't question it. I trusted them that much. And so I went home every night and started working on things I loved, and I started to get myself exposed to what I really loved to do with my time in a very generic way. I had no clear picture of what Nerd Enterprises was going to look like. What I had a clear picture on, or started to formulate a clear picture around, was what do I really like to do with my time? I knew I liked to be in front of the computer. I knew I liked to work with spreadsheets. I knew I liked to work with numbers. And I also knew that I liked to work with people. Specifically, I like to know that I could be put in a position to be of service to another person, to really make a difference and an impact in another person's life. And I do that in and out of my business, because part of my program of being sober, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, involves me going and working with other addicts and alcoholics, helping them to get sober. And that's something I spend a fair amount of my time in the evenings doing. When I walk out of here, 2 or 3 nights out of the week, I'm walking out of here to go work with somebody else and help them. That in itself, even though that actual activity has nothing to do with my business, that gives me the passion. Because then what it does for me is I know that what I can do is I can be a living example to somebody else like that just because you're down in the dumps and just because your life may not be where you want it to be today doesn't mean you can't get there. All you have to do is decide that you've come to a place, like I did 12 years ago, a little more than that, almost 13 years ago. Decide that you've come to a place where you're done, right? You're done with the life that you had up until yesterday, and it's time to start a new life today. And you can do that also at any moment throughout the day just for that day. You can say, you know what, I'm done with the life I had up to this moment today. The rest of today is going to go better. That's how I change my attitude. I've read enough books also that have taught me about how to focus on my thought process, my thought frequency. Where are my thoughts at today? What am I thinking about? Am I thinking negative thoughts? I can turn that around. It doesn't mean I ignore it when something's wrong. I don't ignore my problems, but I don't wallow in them either. I don't sit there and think, my God, this is terrible. I think, what's the solution? How do I fix this? One of the things, the phrases that sort of came to mind recently, and when I had a situation where somebody was coming at me very angry, and my first thought was, that, like many of us, to react and start defending myself and go point by point and explain, no, here's why you're wrong. And I had learned probably just enough, just up to that point, and it was only a few months ago, to realize internally, while this person was yelling at me, this went on internally, I just stopped and thought to myself, okay, if I start reacting and defending myself, this is never going to end. So what can I do to turn this around? And that was the phrase that came to my mind that I love. How do I turn this around? As soon as I recognize that things aren't going the way that I want them to, rather than wallow in the fact that they're not going the way that I want them to, I turn it around. I look at how can I turn this around. That's where I get my passion from. It comes from within. And that's what I learned in the program of recovery, but it applies to everyone in every walk of life. I don't care where you're at. If you want to change, first of all, if you want to change the way things are going, you have to do something different. If you keep doing the same stuff, you keep getting the same stuff, right? That's a common expression. But, so where do I get the passion from? I learned that the way that I find this power that I need to tap into every day to keep me sober is by searching fearlessly within myself. And then what I learned was, today it's not about keeping me sober or clean. I haven't touched anything that affects me from the neck up in over almost 13 years. So it's not about that for me today. Today it's about how do I want to live my life each and every day. How do I stay in the moment, living the kind of life I want to live? I surround myself with people who I love. And that's what gets me excited every day to get up and go do what I do, is the people that I meet with in the accountants and bookkeepers hangout every Friday morning. I love you guys. I really do. And I can't wait to have that meeting now every single Friday. And I think some of you have expressed a similar sentiment in some of the chats that we've had online. That's where I get the passion from, is I just focus on and go after the things I love. And when somebody comes at me in a negative way, like I said, I focus on turning it around. But sometimes you realize that you've come to a point where I can't do anything for that person. I had somebody just post this dumbest comment on one of my YouTube videos the other day. All she said was, "You're annoying." Okay, then why are you even bothering to post a comment on my video? If I'm that annoying, just go away. And I thought it was kind of funny, actually. So I posted a response saying, yet here you are commenting on my video. You stuck around long enough. Don't you have anything better to do? And she posted something else in return, and I said, you know what, I have a perfect solution for this problem. I actually typed that out. I have a perfect solution for this problem. And then I blocked her. And I'm sure she figured it out, because she'll get the email with the comment, and then she'll go to probably respond and realize she's been blocked. I don't have time in my life for people like that. There's no room for people like that in my life. So if somebody comes at me in a negative way, the first thing I can do is try and turn it around. Try and find out, what does this person need? Think, how can I be of service to this person? Just last night, working with a guy, the thought occurred to me. Actually, it wasn't a thought. It was right there in the book we were reading. But the phrase was, the thought that came about was the question of looking at what I'm doing right now and asking myself, am I creating confusion or am I creating harmony? I have found that when I spend most of my thought life, that comes from this guy Casey that I used to learn from. Thought life is his phrase. But when my thought life is focused around thoughts about how can I create harmony amongst people, and especially the people around me, when my thoughts are focused on that, I swear my life goes so much better, and I get the energy. And then I find that I'm surrounded by the people I love. I'm doing the things that I love to do. So of course I don't sleep because I don't want to sleep. I can't wait to get up and get started doing this stuff, and I don't want to walk away and stop doing it because I love it that much. It's not an addiction. An addiction is something I'm doing even though I don't want to do it anymore. That's an addiction. An addiction is something where I am completely powerless. I have no ability to stop once I start. And I start even though I know full well what's going to happen. And I start it anyway because I have that obsession that gets me to do that first one. That's addiction. This is passion. And there is a fine line there. There can be a very fine line between addiction and passion. But you know how you know the difference? With passion, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. With addiction, I'm miserable doing what I'm doing. I hope that helps you. I hope that helps some people answer the question about where I get my passion from, but more importantly, I hope you can use that information to find your own passion. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you on the web.